Coming up on TechZilla, find out what the guts of an iPhone and an iPod look like, clean your keyboard with goo, and how to keep your tech running even when the power goes out. Peel that banana, scoop on some ice cream, and pour the hot fudge, people, because TechZilla starts now. This episode of TechZilla is made possible by Squarespace, GoDaddy.com, and Halo 3 ODST for Xbox 360. Prepare to drop. I'm Patrick Norton.
I'm Veronica Belmont.
Welcome to TechZilla, hands-on reviews of the latest tech and how to make the most out of the gear you've already got.
Whether you're a beginner or tech support for your friends and family, if you've got a question about tech or the best brownies in the Bay Area, we've got an answer for you.
And if we don't, we'll track down someone who does. Big announcement this morning. Not the brownies.
Not the brownies.
The FCC, actually. The FCC dropped an official big announcement early Monday morning that it would expand the 4 net neutrality principles, which is starting to sound like the comfy pillow thing from the Monty Python, laid out in 2005, and set the stage for the principles to become formal rules.
Yes, the 2 additional principles governing net neutrality are broadband providers cannot discriminate against services or applications by slowing them down, and 2, broadband providers must tell customers how its engineers manage the network when it gets congestion.
So now there are six principles and a comfy chair. The original 4 principles to encourage broadband deployment and preserve and promote the open and interconnected nature of the public internet, catchy, huh? Basically said customers are entitled to download lawful content, run any applications or services subject to the needs of law enforcement, run any hardware that doesn't harm the network, and promoted competition amongst internet content providers and service providers and applications. The idea that they want a big, open, festive, gnarly internet. Comcast freaked.
I like that thought.
Yes. Yes, those principles are currently the subject of a Comcast lawsuit that questions the FCC's right to enforce net neutrality.
At the October FCC meeting, Chairman Janikowski will be pushing a notice of proposed rulemaking. You can expect a lot of debate there. Yeah,
mostly you can expect hysterics on the part of the carriers. You can expect people to discuss some pretty serious technical issues about tracking and enforcing this. The carriers are going to get into disclosure on network management practices, and the fact that this is really being pushed across all platforms. You know, DSL, cable, satellite, LAN. It is every means of distributing internet access. And part of me is like excited about this because I like the concept of net neutrality. Part of me is a little terrified because anytime regulation starts, things seem to get weird. On the flip side, you know, Comcast certainly loves throttling whatever it wants, whenever it wants, and interpreting its own version of the bandwidth I think I'm paying for. So it'll be interesting to watch this one shake down.
Yes, and I think I said, I think it's chow, not cow. Janikowski.
Please don't hurt us, sir.
Don't come after me. Hey, rumor has it that you're looking to build another $500 PC.
I think it's time.
It's time for another one?
I think it's really time for another one. Between AMD's sub-$100 quad-core announcement and Intel's new Celeron, yeah.
Yeah, doesn't Celeron, though, usually equal a piece of suck?
Well, that's what's really weird, right?
I'm just saying.
It's an accurate observation. Usually Celeron, it's like, hey, it's a good processor if you have to settle for it, but it's really interesting. The new E3200 and E3300 are really interesting. We're not talking Core i7 performance or even $200 Core i5 performance, but we're talking $65 for an overclocking-friendly 65-watt dual-core CPU with a megabyte of L2 cache. That's pretty hefty. Dual cores, 2 cores, $65.
Okay.
I like it. And
I can get behind that.
Overclockable. I say take a $100 AMD Radeon HD 4850, 4 gigs of RAM for $50, $80 for a 1 terabyte hard drive if you shop around carefully, maybe another $80 for a motherboard, a decent power supply, and you can overclock the snot out of it. And we're probably not even at $400 at this point. This is a nice, clean upgrade for an older system.
So speaking of clean, I'm not sure what the deal with this stuff is, considering you're usually the guy that brings in all the creepy toddler viruses, but this looks a little bit like a flu season style snot you got in these bags here.
Yeah, it's a company called CyberClean was like, do you want to check this out? It'll rip the germs right off of your keyboard.
The germs right off of your keyboard.
Okay, those are my words, not theirs. And it's very critical that you do not press it on, or excuse me, you press it on, you don't rub it, because it's designed to sort of squeak into the nooks and crannies on your keyboard or your cell phone or any other place that's a manifest. Yes, definitely bears a resemblance to certain children's toys. So basically the idea is that you press it on there and it's going to kind of encapsulate the dirt and kill the viruses. And you can see where it basically has formed its way.
It smells like the Like the hand sanitizer.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's isopropyl rubbing alcohol in this.
Oh, it looks
So definitely don't hand it to your toddler. So the idea is that simply by smushing it on there, you're going to actually, not anesthetize, but sterilize your keyboard. And before anybody starts snickering about keyboard crumbs, try to remember that the Center for Disease Control has actually seen keyboards help spread virus outbreaks, and that swine flu can live on a hard surface for up to 8 hours.
Oh, snap.
Oh,
Okay.
snap, yeah.
Can I take a pile of this home with me?
Well, it's probably, I mean, if this stuff is probably overkill, the CDC suggests routine cleaning with the usual stuff, like basic soap and cleansers for stuff like doorknobs, shared keyboards, desks, the sink handles, any hard surfaces. You get the idea. And that additional disinfection probably is not necessary. But I couldn't actually resist a chance to do a before and after test with CyberClean. I notice how you're getting more and more intense with that keyboard. You're thinking about swine flu,
know.
and you're like, eh.
Well, I'm trying to get all the crud out from in between, which I know I'm not really supposed to do, but now I'm having too much fun.
Well, go. You do that. I'll talk about this
Okay.
thing. This is actually some people called, I should say, the people over at Industrial Test Systems lent this to us, and it's actually designed for bacteria tests in water. So we've been trying to mod it to sense the bacteria in our keyboard. So we were actually swabbing this. So I'm still kind of experimenting to get the results we want. Because normally you would fill this with water if you're like basically wanting to see if your water tanks in your RV or your house were terrible, horrible, infested. You put the water in here, you let it sit with the reagent in there, and then you put the test strip in there. And I'm almost positive that you need to have a 1 and a 2 for viral bacteria detected. So currently, according to our sample here, since we only have a line at the 2 and not a line at the 2 and the 1, although I'm convinced I can see a faint line there, the keyboard was not infested with particular bacteria. So it's a pretty interesting idea. It takes about 20 minutes to test it. It's non-coliform bacteria, 10 cubed CFU/ml.
This reminds me of like Silly Putty, but from outer space.
Yeah.
Kind of like it now.
So you hold on to that thought. And coming up next, people from iFixit, the greatest how to fix your iPod, MacBook, iPhone site ever, are here. And while I get busy with my test files, which we'll revisit later in the show, let's thank one of our sponsors. Halo 3, people. It's an entirely new edition of the Halo universe. Halo 3 ODST allows you to experience Halo from a whole new point of view. As an ODST on a recon mission, your job is to discover the truth around what happened at New Mombasa. For 30 years, the Covenant have besieged our civilization, annihilated our cities, and glassed our planets. It ends now. It ends with you. Volunteer for service and fight side by side with the fiercest warriors the human race has ever known, the ODST. Jump into hell, feet first, prepare to drop. Halo 3 ODST delivers the ultimate Halo multiplayer experience with an entirely new co-op game mode, Firefight. It also includes a separate standalone multiplayer disc, which includes 3 new multiplayer maps and all original multiplayer maps for a total of 24. Halo 3 ODST is available now, and you can go to xbox.com/Halo for more information. People, this one is fun. Definitely check it out.
Yeah, that's the way.
Welcome to this week's freebie download pick. A free program that we find useful, fun, or incredibly interesting. This week, pfSense. One of our favorite ways to recycle an old PC is to turn it into a DIY firewall. We've run Smoothwall, IPCOP, MonoWall, but pfSense is the one our cool guy networking friends claim is the best. Why? It's a stateful firewall, the most secure kind built on FreeBSD. It includes VPN and IPsec built in, and the configuration tools are fairly painless to set up. With some low-cost hardware, you can use it to load balance ridiculous traffic loads like feeding all the video and internet for YouTube's live concert. If you want to get your green on, there are boards available that will run pfSense on a minuscule 3 watts, such as PC Engine's Alix. pfSense isn't perfect. The 802.11.n support is weak right now, though better support should come with BSD 8, hopefully before the end of this year. And that's about it. If you're thinking about building yourself a firewall, take a close look at pfSense. It is awesome.
Recently on our website, We Just Can't Get Enough Of segment, I mentioned the guys over at iFixit who have been hard at work empowering you with the know-how to repair and maintain your gadgets. Today we have iFixit CEO Kyle Wines here to break down 2 of Gadgetdom's most talked about gear, the iPod Touch and the iPhone. Welcome to the show, Kyle.
Hello.
So explain to us how iFixit works.
So we have about 1,000 free repair manuals we've written that show you how to take apart an iPod or an iPhone or a Mac and take it apart and fix it yourself. To go along with the repair manuals, we have a couple thousand parts that we sell that make it easy for you to do any kind of repair yourself.
A couple thousand parts?
We sell, so this here is a all the parts in an iPhone, and we sell every part that you see here.
Every single part. So it's primarily for Mac projects.
Yes.
Yeah, nothing else.
Right. We are starting to expand some of the teardowns that we've done to non-Mac gadgets. Took apart the Zune HD the other day. But our focus right now on the part side of things is on Apple hardware and tools.
So you mentioned the breakdowns. What's the deal with those? Why do you do them?
So we do the teardowns primarily because we're curious, because we're geeks, and we want to see what is inside the new hardware. What did Apple do differently in the iPhone 3GS compared to the iPhone 3G? Or when Palm releases something like the Palm Pre, how did they do that? What is unique and different? And how can I compare that to the hardware that Apple and Motorola and some of the other companies have made? So it's really a curiosity thing to get inside, to be the first to see it, see how they did it, reverse engineer a little bit of the hardware, and see what the design trade-offs that they've made are.
Now, once you break them down, do you typically put them back together again, or is it all for show? Does it kind of stay in its broke down parts for the rest of eternity?
No, we almost always put them back together.
Oh, really?
And they work when we're done.
Unless you hot glue them down to the
Unless
plexiglass.
Right. Well, so all these parts that we built these models out of were actually damaged parts out of.
Oh, excellent. So waste not, want not.
We try to be very eco-friendly.
So what are these guys here?
So here we have a original iPhone, and this is going all the way down. So at the top you have the display, and then the communications board and logic board, battery, the headphone cable, and then the metal back plate to the original iPhone is at the very bottom.
Excellent. And how long does it take you to break down one of these gadgets?
Well, it depends on what it is. The new iPhones you can take apart in maybe 15 or 20 minutes. That iPhone, the original one, was one of the most difficult devices to work on we've ever come across, and so that may take well over an hour to take apart.
Approximately how many different parts does the iPhone have inside of it? I mean, you said that this is everything, but there's probably little tiny circuit bits that you haven't taken
It really
apart,
isn't.
right?
That's pretty much it. So if I was selling parts, you'd see there's about 10 layers there, and every layer is a different part that we would sell.
All right, and then we have which one's the Touch?
This is
Hard
the
to tell
iPod
when you
Touch
see
here.
them all broke apart like this. And this is the first gen?
Yeah, that's the original iPod Touch.
Now, what did you learn about the newest iPod Touch? There were some little secrets hidden in there, weren't there?
The new iPod Touch had two interesting secrets. The first was that all the rumors had been that it was going to have a camera, and then Apple announced it, and we're all disappointed because it doesn't have a camera. Well, it turns out that Apple secreted away a 6mm by 6mm by 3mm tall spot that they could have put a camera in, but they didn't.
Do you have any theories about why they didn't this time around?
I think they totally would have if they had been able to. There were some rumors about manufacturing issues with the cameras. There's some issues with making a camera that thin. 3mm is very thin for a camera with all the optics. The camera that is in the iPhone is substantially thicker than that. The camera is right here. And so this camera is more like 6 or 7mm thick. So getting it half as thick is going to require they get rid of some of the autofocus circuitry or do something really fancy and new. And my guess is Apple was trying to do something fancy and new that just didn't make the cut in time.
So how many components can a user actually replace? I mean, is it every single bit inside the iPhone, or is it just the ones you offer? Or how do they even know which part is broken?
Well, so we have troubleshooting guides on our site that help you, because sometimes you're in a situation where my iPhone just doesn't turn on. What could it be? And sometimes there's 3 or 4 different reasonable solutions, and you kind of have to try them in order of probability. Or you plug it into, if it looks like it's not turning on and you plug it into iTunes and it starts to sync, then you know maybe you have a problem with the display and the rest of the phone is okay. So you try to narrow it down that way.
Speaking of display, that is definitely one of the most common issues that people have with their Touches or their iPhones. And you have a replaceable display that you sell as well.
So we sell a display repair kit for both the iPhone 3G and the 3GS. It's $59.95. So for $60, you can repair the glass screen. Now, what that does is you're not replacing the LCD itself. You're replacing the glass and the touchscreen digitizer, which is what senses your fingers move on the screen. And that is 95% of the time what breaks. So those things are selling like hotcakes, and $60 is far cheaper than any other solution for repairing an iPhone.
Yeah, what would happen? What would be the time commitment you have to give to an Apple repair in order to get your iPhone back?
So Apple will repair them for $200. If you're lucky, they will do it on site for you. With some repairs, if you have to mail it into Apple, then it's a couple weeks. With an iPod, if you mail in an iPod to Apple to replace the battery, they ship you back a different iPod without your data on it, and it takes a couple weeks.
And then all your data's in Apple's hands,
right,
unless you had the forethought to actually
right,
totally wipe it. So do you get it off with that suction cup there?
Yes. So to open it, I put a suction cup on the screen, and then there's 2 screws that you have to remove that I can do here. The original iPhone was quite challenging to take open because the back plate of it was actually metal and caused a number of issues. With this one, you remove these 2 screws, and then it's a little bit of suction cup action. And it's actually, I mean, it's a fair amount of force to get it off. I'm always a little bit surprised, but that's what the suction cup is for. So I'll get it here in a sec.
I have fingernails if you need them.
Yeah.
I've always wondered how much effort would actually go into taking these apart and putting them back together if you had the wherewithal to know how to fix it.
It really varies by device. That's the kicker. And with this one, it's really not that bad. There we go. Okay, so I got the suction cup, and now I can just lift this off and pivot. And you got to be careful because there's some cables in there. But that's pretty much the hard part, getting it open. And then now you've got the whole display assembly. This is the LCD, and then the glass on the other side. So the glass is glued to the LCD, so you use a hairdryer to heat up the adhesive so that you can free the glass. And it's actually easier when the glass is broken than when it's intact. So usually you're replacing a broken glass.
I would imagine that a hairdryer would be the one thing that you can't buy on the site to actually fix your iPhone.
We don't sell hairdryers. No. But I think your listeners are resourceable enough. And then these are pre-cut adhesive strips, 2-sided tape to glue it back down.
Oh, fantastic.
We make super easy. So this is one of the most accessible repairs to a common person who has never done a hardware repair before.
Yeah, what's the technical skill that someone would really need to do it? I mean, that obviously is definitely on the easy side of things, but for something a little more advanced, what kinds of things do you teach people that maybe would take a little bit more time to learn?
So the most important thing is following directions carefully and closely. It's really not as much a technical thing as it is a dexterity. People with smaller fingers tend to do better than people with big hands.
I'm perfect for it. Excellent.
You're perfect. So it really, as long as you're willing to take a little bit of time and follow our instructions closely, that's the key thing that the instructions do, is they really lower the barrier to entry. Where if you didn't have instructions that showed you everything to do and how much force is required to do this, you would be very hesitant to dive in. Where we put the instructions out there and people are always calling and asking us, is this something that's too challenging? Can I do it myself? And we say, well, look through the step-by-step photos online. Tell me what your comfort level is looking at that. If you feel like those are instructions that you can follow, go ahead and do it. If you feel like it's too complex, then hire a technician to do it for you.
Yeah. Where do the parts come from? Are they recycled from other products, or are they new from the factory?
We sell 2 major types of products. Some are new things that we can get from the factory, things like the glass screens, batteries, hard drives, LCDs for laptops. A lot of the parts that we sell are used. We'll buy computers from people, take them apart, and sell the parts. And that's where we'll get parts that you just can't remanufacture, like the boards that Apple uses.
And at what point do you just kind of throw up your hands in the air and say, it would probably just be cheaper to buy a new iPod or a new iPhone?
So the number one case where you probably just want to give up is where you wash your iPod in the washing machine or you dropped it into the pool, because water damage can hurt the LCD, it can hurt the logic board, it can hurt some of the cables inside. And the moment you've got a situation where you know there's probably multiple parts bad, it's very hard to diagnose, very hard to know what parts to buy, and so you're really in a difficult place there.
So the drunken dropping the iPhone in the toilet is probably a situation where it's just time to move on. Well, thank you so much. Where can people follow you online?
iFixit.com. We're posting new repair manuals all the time, and every time a new gadget comes out, we post a teardown, and also the parts are available along with all the tools and everything else you need to do a repair yourself.
Well, thank you so much, Kyle. I know who to call the next time I have some trouble with my iPhone. Coming up next, how to keep the lights and tech running when the power goes out. But first, time to thank one of our sponsors, Squarespace. And here to tell us more is our PA, Annie.
Hi everyone, it's Annie, and I want to fill you in on what's new at Squarespace, the online publishing platform that makes creating any website a snap. Squarespace has just launched a new site importer tool that makes it so easy to migrate your existing site over to Squarespace. The new importer tool supports all the popular platforms and moves all of your comments, tags, authors, and media automatically. And side note, Squarespace is the only platform out there that does all of it. See for yourself how easy it is. Sign up at squarespace.com, then click on the blog importer tool, enter the login information for your existing platform, and within moments, it's all there. Even if you have a custom domain, Squarespace uses the URL structure of your existing site to create mappings for every single post, all automatically. It's pretty amazing, and it ensures that when you do import your site, all of your content will stay totally intact, including your search engine ranking that you may have spent a long time building. The only thing that will change is the quality of your site. So if you've been thinking of giving your site a little facelift, this would be the perfect way to do it. And better yet, you can sign up for a free 2-week trial to test it out first. And if you sign up for the paid version of Squarespace using the code TEKZ, that's TEKZ, we'll get you 10% off the whole lifetime of your order. So don't hesitate. Check out squarespace.com today.
Looks like it's time for another website we just can't get enough of. A website that we just can't stay away from because it's too useful, too funny, or just too darn irresistible. This week's pick, hidetext.net. Our website pick this week does one thing, and they do it really well. HideText prevents crawlers for search engines and spammers to find your email address or any other valuable information that you might want to post on your website. How do they do it? Simple! By making an image file that shows the info rather than actually printing it. Well, I'm sure there's some wildly advanced programs out there that can break a CAPTCHA, which is basically the same principle. This will definitely give you an extra layer of protection from spammers. All you have to do is visit the site, enter in the text that you want made into an image, and hit Hide It. You can also choose between Verdana and Arial to best integrate the image into the text that you may use on your site already. Sure, you could take the time to create your own image using a photo editor, but with HideText, they actually host that tiny little file on their servers, so you can plug it into forums or blog posts easily. So if you want to take that extra step to keep your private info out of the hands of search engines, give HideText a try today.
A number of folks have asked about emergency power options for your tech, i.e. what you can do when the main power goes out, or what you can use to run a LAN party out in the woods, if you prefer to think about it that way. Have you ever done that? Have you ever, the power goes out in San Francisco? Actually, the power's been pretty good this year.
Yeah, it's been good this year. We haven't had too many brownouts or anything so far. It doesn't get too hot out here, so not everyone's running their air conditioners.
We had the one during the thunderstorm.
Did it go out?
For about an hour.
I came home one day and the clocks were all flashing, and I'm like, oh, what happened there?
And we have pictures like me with the baby with a flashlight reading at like 5:30 in the morning.
That sounds not as fun as it actually.
No, it was
That was
fun.
okay?
It was a family moment.
It was a bonding moment.
It was when the dog woke up my son, who was terrified because he couldn't figure out why the dog was howling at the thunder. That was kind of scary. Anyhow, there are a ton of hacks you can do, from the enormously inefficient, like running your car to run its alternator so you can power an inverter, to the enormously green solar cells. Actually, are of particular interest to a lot of you. I love solar power, especially if you're living off the grid. But beyond just the most modest power requirements, it is not a great emergency source of energy. We're talking $300 for a 60-watt panel and inverter. That's enough to charge your phones and maybe trickle your notebook. Think $1,700 for 250 watts worth of panels and a proper charge controller for your batteries. And that's not even enough to power a typical refrigerator.
Yeah, that's probably not even including the batteries, huh? You have to
No.
store that somehow.
Yeah, well, it's like you'll get most of these things because batteries are mostly lead. Lead's heavy. They don't want to put those in the kit. You might want to use better batteries. So like $300 is typically for like 60, maybe 100 watts if you get really lucky. 300 watts, you're pushing over $1,700. But you'll get a nice controller that'll monitor your batteries, and you're going to go spend a few $100s on batteries, right?
Yeah, and then, I mean, if we live in a place like San Francisco or Seattle that it basically rains all freaking winter.
Yeah.
If you're relying on solar energy around that time of year, it's going to be, not so hot.
Yeah, if you're in Palm Springs, it's great.
You might be fine. Be fine.
Well, what's really crazy is one of the best things, our friend Lloyd Case actually did a whole series on going solar and selling back electricity to the power company, right? He basically has his roof's covered with solar cells. He's down in the peninsula. But what was really interesting is like he took his power bill from like $300 to like $11 during the summer. But in the winter, the charging day gets much shorter and the amount of sun that's hitting the surface of the earth gets a little lesser, so it becomes, basically winter is a bad time to have a solar-based emergency.
But what about like a generator?
Generators are awesome, actually. I love generators. In fact,
He's a guy that loves a generator.
I love a good generator, people. This thing actually is Honda's
Gotta make a loud noise, isn't it?
No. I'm not gonna start it up. This is Honda's EU2000i. It weighs 52 pounds and it cranks out 2,000 watts at max. Running at the rated load of 1,600 watts, you'll get around 4 hours on a single tank. If you drop it down to something, like basically just your refrigerator, 400 watts, you're talking about 15 hours. That's a quarter load. Basically, a quarter load will run 15 hours. The max load, basically, the reason they do sort of a recommended load and the max load on generators is because a lot of things surge when they start. For example, motors, the motor inside your refrigerator, the motors inside of power tools. That would be the gas fuel vent.
That's where the gas goes. It's a vent.
Well, this is the vent.
That's where the gas comes out.
Yeah.
Oh. I'm puffing on air. That's not healthy.
Well, my co-host recovers. One of the nice things about the Honda is a full sine wave inverter built into it. So a lot of the inverters built into less expensive generators, they basically do a stepped wave, which means some power supplies freak out, especially electronics power supplies kind of panic when they're plugged into that. The really nice thing about these, though, and there's a couple competitors out there that I'm not as familiar with, is it's 50 decibels at 7 meters. So 20 feet away, it's 50 dB, which is considerably softer than a human conversation, right? 60 dB for human conversation, 42 is a typical quiet office. 50 dB is insanely quiet for a generator. So for comparison, a typical contractor style generator like the one I have is around 80 or 85 decibels, which is like standing next to a food blender.
Loud.
Yes, a really loud food blender, or a tractor trailer going by at 45 miles an hour. The flip side is that it's loud, but it costs about half as much and delivers twice the wattage. So figure like 5,000 watts for $300 to $500 for a really loud generator. The thing is, for anything like this, you need to figure out what load you need to support, right? So this is about 3/4. This is basically 15 to 16 amps. So that's going to be typical to a single plug in your house, right? A single 20 amp line in
This
your
whole
house.
thing would be like a single plug in your house.
Pretty much.
Okay.
So,
but that means you could probably put some kind of power strip in it and still continue to charge.
You want to be careful with that,
gadgets,
because
though?
well, first of all, you want to make sure you use big, heavy cords, because I've seen people using like really cheap lamp cord style power like cables, and grab the power cable and burn themselves because basically, well, if you know what I mean, if you don't want to be carrying a whole lot of amperage over a little tiny chunk of wire, look, amps equals 120 volts, or amps times 120 volts equals the wattage. So if you know the wattage of a device or the amperage of a device, you can basically figure out how much of the power on this thing or any other generator it's going to consume. And that's critical, right? Because a microwave is an easy 1,000 watts. A hairdryer is an easy 700 watts if you're not careful. So you can run like one microwave, a half an air conditioner, 2 hair dryers. You know what I mean? Like you start figuring out, several notebooks, a PC, a monitor, and a couple lamps. So you kind of got to pick and choose. The really cool guy version of this is a standby generator attached to your house that runs off a liquid propane or natural gas. You're going to have it professionally installed with a transfer switch, so that basically when the power goes out, you flip the switch, you start the generator, or it does it automatically, and it swaps the house power to the generator.
That would be awesome.
And then it's easy to pick up like thousands and thousands and thousands of watts and figure on spending thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars.
Now this is really the only that would only really work if you owned your home, right?
Yes.
Like you could not do that in your apartment building.
It depends on how cool your landlord is.
True.
I mean, if you want to spend tens of thousands of dollars on your apartment, I'm sure your landlord will be glad to let you do it if you leave it behind.
No.
Yeah, not real practical for the city. Coming up next, flaming marsupials. No, we've got viewer questions coming up, but first, let's thank one of our sponsors. Veronica?
GoDaddy.com. If you want to make an impact online, GoDaddy.com has what you need. .com names as low as $1.99, plus world-class hosting, fast and easy website builders, and much more. Keep your personal information away from spammers, hackers, and your crazy ex-roommate. Private domain registration from GoDaddy.com protects your privacy by keeping your address, phone number, and more out of the public database. Plus, enter code TECH1, that's TEK1, when you check out, and save an additional 10% off your entire order. Some restrictions apply. See site for details. And be sure to check out revision3.com/GoDaddy for all the Texilla deals and codes. Get your piece of the internet at GoDaddy.com. We got this email from Basham. The coverage you gave the Zune HD was little more than a blurb that it exists, and you didn't even have a hands-on to demonstrate it. Come on, guys. Basham. Come on, you guys. Didn't you hear the part where we said it was going to be on HD Nation because the marketplace wasn't working and you can't use the Zune without the marketplace being live, and that's the whole reason we couldn't show it after all, because the day we were taping it wasn't working, so what the heck were we supposed to do?
Yeah, pretty much. Basically, when they started the new version of the Zune hardware, they had a new Zune store to go with it, and there was nothing we could do except for hold it up and go, it's here! And maybe in retrospect, we should have waited till this week to give you a full demo and not even mentioned it. But if we did that, then you'd be complaining that we didn't do that.
You'd be even more mad at us.
So, the basic Zune HD costs $220 for the 16 gigabyte version, $290 for the 32 gigabyte version. And it is actually an amazing interface. 3.3-inch OLED screen that is awesome, built-in HD radio. Really, actually, solid quality audio playback. Some people have some issues with it, but you know what? Dump the earbuds, get a decent set of headphones, and you'll be really happy. It's a multi-touch screen. And actually, I gotta say, I really like the new Zune software release. And I got to say, the video from the Zune store looks great.
And you can play it using the dock once you connect to your TV.
Well, let's talk about the dock.
You're not a fan of the dock?
I love the dock. The dock comes with
You
a
do love the
fabulous
dock.
HDMI cable. It comes with a fabulous component cable.
I still can't tell if he's being sarcastic
No.
or not.
I love the dock, but the dock is $90 on top of the cost of the Zune HD. So if you want the incredible cool guy remote control and HD playback from the Zune, you are going to need to spend the extra $90 for the Zune dock.
I will tell you one thing that's kind of lame, and it's not really an issue of a new release kind of thing. It's been that way forever, but it does use the stupid, annoying point system. Stupid point system that I hate. I hate point systems.
Yes.
$15 for 1,200 points. An HD movie to buy is like 1,440 points. An HD episode of BSG, for example, 240 points. Points. Why can't they just use money?
I don't know.
Why can't they just use monies?
Maybe because it's easier to...
It's such a racket.
It's annoying. It's frustrating in Microsoft. This is a great piece of hardware, but the point system is annoying. So the video's not particularly cheap on this, but it is of very high quality. We actually used the 720p output from the Zune, basically the Zune HD AV dock, into a gorgeous 1080p screen, and it looked quite solid.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of the Zune. You know, I've said time and time again that if they had Mac software, it would definitely be a device that I would look at. I have enough music on my system now that is DRM free, so it wouldn't really make a difference. I just want the Mac software. I don't understand why they haven't made that switch yet. I mean, if iTunes...
Because they were too busy putting internet access in this and working on the
Wi-Fi. Yeah, it does work with Twitter and Facebook, right? They have integration.
I haven't played around with those yet because Facebook's scared. I started playing around with Facebook, and that's a little still
We're catching them up to the internet. We're getting them on the internet, this one.
You know, I got a child to raise, people. You want my son to be poorly raised? Because he's going to be big and fast when he's 18 years old.
That's why I have cats. Well, our next question comes from Matthew with a very sound question. He writes, I know from watching this show that you two love your music, so I'm hoping that you guys can help me out. I got a new iMac recently, and I'm loving it, but the sound quality from the built-in speakers is a bit disappointing. I was wondering if you had some recommendations on some sub-$250 speakers for use with my machine. Matthew, well, with that price point, actually, you can get some pretty decent sets. I've been using the same ones for probably 4 years now or so, and they just blew out a month ago, like literally like a month ago. I actually did it by blasting WoW too loud, and our raid buffs blew out my speakers, which is kind of embarrassing. But never mind, that's beside the point. What I'm trying to say is that the Logitech Z2300 2.1 system are a really nice set. You can get them for around $130. If you want something a little bit slimmer, check out the Logitech Z5, which doesn't come with a separate subwoofer, so that might save you a little bit of space if you've got a space crunch. They might be a little light on the bass, but the price is right at $60, and I think they're pretty sexy looking too. What's that you got there? That is not a typical Mac compatible speaker system set.
There's actually, I agree, the Logitech sound good. I'm a big fan of the clip speakers that I bought for my original iPod several thousand years ago. But my personal thing for desktop speakers is to use bookshelf speakers and a full receiver.
Well, that's a great idea and all, but I mean, if they've got limited desk space, it's going to be kind of an issue.
Well, you don't have to necessarily use a bookshelf speaker this big, but there are a lot of options out there.
There are a lot of options, and I was kind of joking when I said that it's not a good setup, but it is for the sound quality.
Yes.
It's just a matter of having the right kind of space and wanting to hook up everything.
You put the amplifier under your monitor, which puts it at the right height. You got the speakers on either side. Well, it's just something I want you to consider.
It's an option. If you have some speakers and a receiver laying around and a subwoofer, it'll work out pretty well.
Yard sales.
Yard sales. The Altic Lansing Expressionist Bass FX3022 have subwoofers built right into them, and they're actually pretty sweet to look at as well. Those are going to run you about $140 or less, depending on where you shop. I would suggest either going to your local Apple Store or Best Buy and give those options a listen to before you order something online. But there are tons of options out there. I mean, on top of getting something at the yard sale and using it, there's JBL, Logitech, iHome, will have lots of little speakers that you can put on your desk, well under $250. But those Z2300s are probably my favorite.
Yeah.
They lasted a really long time too.
I gotta say, if you happen to have an unlimited budget, or the folks over at Headphone, the Headroom folks, headphone.com, actually came up with an ultimate desktop system.
Oh, really?
Yes, actually, the best part of it may actually be the speaker stands, but the speaker, it just, you know, if you got 7K laying around, you want to drop into your computer speaker system.
Well, I have to say, I'm in the process of trying to reorganize my office space. I have a kind of a crappy desk that I actually pulled up off the street one day walking home. That was before I had, like, you know, real work or anything.
Some
so I
of
was
the
like,
nicest
ooh,
furniture I own was like mid-century modern
yeah.
furniture that people have left out. Like I've found furniture worth several hundreds or close to $1,000.
Well,
just
this would
thrown
not
out.
be that, but I
Okay.
mean, it was
But you like
it was
it?
like a nice modular system, and I've had it for 5 years or so now, and I'm ready for some more space though, and a little more storage. There's not really any drawers or anything on it,
Yeah,
so.
your desk score is fine until one day you're stumbling through lifehacker.com and you're like, oh my God, that's the most ergonomic workspace I've ever seen. I could be more efficient.
Have you seen IKEA Hacker?
Yes, I have seen IKEA Hacker.
Amazing. I'm going to do that for the website next week if we haven't already done it. I'll have to take a look. Anyway, our final question comes from Datitude. I wonder if that's a good Datitude or a bad Datitude. He writes, I'm in the process of working with a group of audio files in AIFF format and need a piece of software that can perform a specific task. I need to be able to take a folder full of AIF files, tack 0.25 seconds of silence onto the end of them, and then save them as OGG files. I can do this manually in Audacity, but I'm really looking for a way to automate the process. Ideally, I would like to do this in Mac OS X, but I have access to a Windows XP machine if it's completely necessary to go that route. Datitude in Pennsylvania.
Okay, I know exactly why this question here, because it's like 50%, what is he doing, and 50%, oh my God, this is actually really hard to do.
Yeah, so I spent like 2 hours yesterday or the day before trying to come up with an answer. I mean, Audacity has these chain processes that let you batch edit a bunch of audio files, but that would only solve the OGG exporting. I couldn't really find a way to tack on that quarter of a second silence at the end of them.
So you can't like take two files, cut them together, and then export that?
Well, I mean, you
you
can
could-
do
if you
that
had a
manually, but
quarter-second
there's not a
silent
chain batch thing that'll do that. I mean, they have preset chain
AppleScript?
functions. AppleScript was the next thing I was thinking of. I actually
Okay.
went on to Automator and tried to find some Automator plugins for Audacity, but I couldn't find any.
Really?
I don't know if I'm crazy or what the deal is, but there were no preset Automator plugins that I could find. I mean, maybe I was looking in the wrong place. I haven't done a lot of work with Automator, so maybe I just haven't found the right kind of library for that kind of stuff. I was looking for Sound Studio ones. I even looked for Pro Tools a little bit, obviously out of your price range for what you're trying to do. But it's out of my Apple scripting abilities. I mean, I know Automator is like, Apple scripting for total noobs, but I would like to learn more about it. But in the meantime, if anyone out there in audience land can think of a way to do this, please write into us at texilla@revision3.com, either a shell script or an Apple script, I guess, or if they've heard of an application that can already do those kind of batch operations, that would probably be helpful as well.
Cool.
Help the Datitude out. Got to help the Datitude.
Teach us how to script, people. We need it. One of Revision 3's best shows is getting a makeover. It's a brand new look for the Totally Rad Show, your source for geek-filled discussion of movies, video games, TV, comics, and more. We're talking a new show open, new graphics, a new theme song to make TRS with Alex, Jeff, and Dan even more rad. I hear there may even be new wardrobe. Don't miss the new chapter in the Totally Rad Show starting this week. You can catch them every Tuesday at revision3.com/TRS.
And for all of you watching, we live on your questions, so email us, texilla@revision3.com. Tech help, product reviews, how-tos, you ask us, we'll do it. But we need those emails. So don't be shy, send them on in to texilla@revision3.com.
We like the video questions, people. Think of all the fun you can have and the admiration of your friends and family and neighbors, and even the people down at the church when they see your mug on our show. Just keep it to 15 seconds, upload it to YouTube, and send us the link in an email with video question in the subject line. And as always, you can visit our forums at revision3.com/forum. Share your thoughts, ideas, comments, or dreams with other fans of the show.
Thank you guys so much for watching.
I'm Patrick Norton.
I'm Veronica Belmont.
Until next time, you've been watching Texilla.
Audi 5000.
In 3, 2.
Sorry.
Jesus Christ. Veronica's using her Vulcan mind control. Pour the hot fudge. Don't forget the whipped cream, you kinky bastards. Oh. Ladies and gentlemen, all of you watching out there, if you'd heard what I just heard, you'd all be weeping. And not softly. He's going to be doing that
Shut
all
up about the nuts.
day long.
Shut up about the nuts. There could not be a mental image more unappealing to me
Yes.
than...
Yes, there can actually. Because you know what the
Then
next thing
that
he brings
combination of things. And Roger Chang. I love you. Love of God! All right, 3, 2. We got this email from Basham. The coverage you gave the Zune HD was a little more than it was a little more than a blurb. 3, 2. We got this email from Basham. The coverage you gave the Zune HD was little more than a blurb that it exists. You didn't even give a... Ah! This is the longest show ever! We got this email... 3, 2. Thank you guys so much for watching.
I'm Patrick Norton.
I'm Veronica Belmont.
I was dreaming. Until next time, you've been watching Techzilla.
Audi 5000.
Really? You bought an Audi?
No.
That'll make him laugh.
Oh, you ruined... No.